Today I am joined by Pascal Bosschaart, who is a former player for Sydney FC as well as a number of clubs across Holland. Thank you so much for joining me today, Pascal.
You're welcome.
We'll start with my first basic question I like to ask everybody. Just where did your passion and love for football first begin?
I think it started at the age of 5. I grew up actually on the football pitch. My dad played football. My mom played football, or soccer. How do you call it in Australia? They played both soccer and I grew up on the soccer pitch. So that's why my passion started as well with soccer.
And when you were growing up watching, I'll call it football because I do prefer the term football, did you have any heroes or idols? If so, who were they?
When I was young, of course, I grew up in Rotterdam, so I was a fan of Feyenoord. But overall, if you look in terms of anyone in particular, it must be someone else. I was Ryan Giggs, former Manchester United player, left winger. I looked up at him.
When you first started playing, I know a lot of defenders and goalkeepers I've spoken to always tell me a story that they started out as a striker or a winger. Was it the case for you, or were you always a defender?
Same story. I started as a left winger. That's why also Ryan Giggs was that's why I love the way of play of Ryan Giggs as well. I started as a left winger, but in my early career, I found out that my speed wasn't that good, and not good enough as a winger. So that's why I became defender. Yeah, so it's the same story as a lot of defenders now.
And speaking of your career, when it first started, you made your breakthrough with Utrecht. For your first ever match, for your debut, the first time you stepped onto the pitch as a professional, what was that moment like? And how do you think you entered in that match?
Okay, it was a moment when I was 16. I was an under-21 player of Utrecht, but in the first team they had a lot of injuries, so they took me to the squad of the first team, and we had an away game with the Graafschap, and I was 16 years old. I didn't have my name on my back still, and I came in with the number 17. And I made my debut at an away game of Utrecht. We won that game 1-0. So it was a great debut. And I still remember that as today as it was yesterday.
You also won the cup during your time at Utrecht. What was that whole experience like for a young player winning such a major tournament?
I think that's a great thing, because when I played at Utrecht, we were always like in the middle of the league. So in terms of like from place 4 till 8, and we were doing well in the cup tournament, and we played the final 3 times in a row, and we won 2 of that. So it was a great experience.
You also mentioned you're from Rotterdam. Obviously, Feyenoord are a massive club there. You were fortunate enough to play for Feyenoord. What was that moment like the first time you put on the iconic jersey?
Well, as I said, I grew up in Rotterdam. I always had the dream to play for the first team of Feyenoord. But in my youth, not a lot of young players had their breakthrough in their first squad, in the first team. So that's why I made my decision and make my path to Utrecht. And I played there 7 years, and well, after that 7 years, Feyenoord had to buy me back from Utrecht. So I made my debut at the first team of Feyenoord when I was 22. That was, for me, it was a moment I will never forget.
Did you feel pressure at all, knowing it's such an iconic jersey and it means so much to the people of Rotterdam, when you played for Feyenoord, or was it kind of different for you considering you're from the area?
No, it gives you a bit of a pressure, of course. And if I knew back then what I know now, is that never. Well, never live in the city where you play, because all the results, the good results, the bad results, everybody is going to remind you on all those results because you're living in that area. If I knew back then what I knew now, I would probably live outside of Rotterdam.
Now, a few people I've spoken to who have gone to Dutch football matches or even played in Holland have said that going to play away at Ajax is one of the most, terrifying experiences. And being a fan, just going to the stadium, they say it's almost like a religious experience. So do you think that reputation is true at all?
Well, I won't say it's terrifying, but I would say it's an amazing experience, not only for the players, but also for the fans. The game Feyenoord Ajax and Ajax Feyenoord, those are the games. You want to play and you want to watch. So I won't say it's a terrifying game, but I would say it's an amazing opportunity if you get a chance once in your life to visit one of those matches. It's going to be highly regarded.
So after playing in the Eredivise for a number of seasons and forging, a real solid career for yourself and making a real name for yourself, you made the move down to Australia with Sydney FC, which is where people like myself really know you from. So when you first started, thinking about the move to Sydney, how did that first come about?
When I was playing in Den Haag, I played 7 years Utrecht, 3 years Feyenoord, 5 years in Den Haag. I was almost at my last match of Den Haag, and I said to my wife and my family, I want something else, because I've seen all the stadiums, so I wanted something else. And I knew it when I played my last game in Den Haag. My manager called me with the story that there was an offer from a club in Australia, and I said, okay, well, that's interesting. So I called my wife, and actually she hung up the phone immediately. So I rang her back and I said, listen, I'm not joking. It's a true story. We can move to Australia. So we had a discussion after our match, and the next day I had a Zoom meeting with the coach, Vitislav Lavichka, and that meeting was very good. I had a great feeling by the team and the board, but also with the coach, and that's why I actually joined Sydney FC. I'm not regretting any hair on my head. I don't know if it's saying it in Australia as well, but it's I don't regret any moment of that experience.
When you first started thinking about Australia, I know, football wise, it has a bit of a weird reputation across the world, but also lifestyle wise, I feel as an Australian, Hollywood and the rest of the world don't really understand what Australia is like. So did you know much about Australia? And when you first come here, was it different to what you had imagined and expected?
I didn't know anything about Australia because it's 24 hours flight. It's on the other side of the world. So I wasn't looking into Australia. But when I knew I was moving to Sydney, of course I did some research. And of course you do some research, but when you arrive to Sydney, it's still different because everything in Australia is it's laid back. It's like it's easy. It's an easy way of life. It's the winters, or maybe you think the winters are cold in Australia, but the winters are pretty warm. Like it's 15, 16 degrees in wintertime. That's almost here in summer. I could not even imagine how it would be in Sydney. And you only can imagine how it is in Sydney when you live there. So it was difficult.
Now, a little bit earlier, you said a bit of a phrase that I wasn't familiar with as an Australian. And while we can have a conversation, we both speak English, Australia has very weird slang phrases and lingo. When you first come here, was there any things that, your teammates or your coaches were even saying that you just completely didn't understand, like any slang terms?
Of course, it's dingo. I didn't know dingo. All those slangs. Of course, I don't know, but you know what it is. They had the same with me. I brought also a few slangs into Australia, and they didn't know also what it means. So it was for us a great learning experience as well, because we think we can speak English very well in Holland, but Australian is very difficult as well, because, as you said, they shorten the words as well. So they have different words. So for us, it was quite nice, because our girls, they went to school, and within a few weeks they spoke better Australian than our Australian. So it's for them. It was also a great learning experience.
Now onto the football pitch for just a moment, because this is a football interview as well. When you first, started playing for Sydney FC, what did you make of the quality of the league? Were you shocked? Was it what you expected? Was it completely different?
Well, I knew it was a little bit. It wasn't that good as it is in Europe. I knew that, but when I came to Sydney, a lot of European players also came to Australia. So I think the level, and I don't say it's because of me, 100% not, but the European influence, the players, they brought the level a little bit higher, and I think on this moment the level is quite good. I think Sydney can play easily in the Eredivise.
Well, that's certainly a big shout, and I'm sure a lot of Sydney FC fans would be very happy to hear that one. Sydney have always been a club with very lofty ambitions, and from the get-go, when they were first founded, they pretty much signed star players. They had Dwight York in their first season, former Manchester United. But when you were there, they had former Feyenoord player Brett Emerton, big Socceroo player, and also Alessandro Del Piero, one of the greatest players in the past 20 or 30 seasons. So having these big name players, on their books, and with all this pressure of success, what was it like to be one of those players who wasn't so much in the spotlight as a Del Piero, trying to deal with the pressure of a team that's expected to win like that?
Well, I think, to be honest, it's quite easy in Australia, because football is not sport number one. So there's not a lot of attention. Is it attention? Attention to the game. So in terms of European wise, there's a lot of media around football, and in Australia it's not that much. So it's I can understand it's also for Brett Emerton, Alessandro Del Piero. It must be easier for them to play in Australia than in Feyenoord with Brett Emerton, or in Juventus with Del Piero. So I think it's probably easier for them to play in Australia than overseas.
Now, one player who comes from Europe and he really made the A-League his own was Bosschaart Berisha. And, I think you know where I'm going with this one, but I think
100%.
I wouldn't be doing the interview justice if I didn't bring it up. I'm sure you remember the incident well. I personally, as a player, have had moments where, I've got a bit of white line fever. I got a bit of hot under the collar. But when the full-time whistle goes, usually you shake hands, you make up, you have a drink or something. But Bosschaart Berisha, when the full-time whistle went, took his shirt off, it seemed like he went to go fight you in the car park. What do you remember about that incident, and what was it like your point of view about that whole incident regarding Berisha?
It's a long story, but I was a defender, and I was I think Bosschaart and myself, I think we are both the same characters. We would do everything to win the game, so as he did as well. So we played a match, I think, at Kogarah, and Brisbane was the team to beat, because they had the longest winning streak of the league. So we had an argument, Bosschaart Berisha and I, and we had a few duels in the match, but that's okay. Then we played the Brisbane away game, And of course, in the game, we had a few arguments as well. Nothing bad, because he said also after the match that I said something about his family or something. But I'm 100% sure, and I'll put my hand on my heart. I would never say anything bad about someone's family or religion or so. And we had an argument. So after the match, he pulled my shirt, and I was happy to follow him. And it's titled as the biggest A-League fight in history of the A-League, but without throwing any punches. So it's a bigger story than it was actually on the pitch.
Again, it's all over. Brisbane Roar have won it. 2 late goals.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Berisha and Pascal Bosschaart continuing the argument. I tell you what, this is going to kick off if we're not very, very careful. Liam Reddy has head over and is involved in a push and shove with Mitch Nichols. It was Pascal Berisha who actually sparked that little row, and this is all getting very, very ugly indeed. Berisha was incensed by something that Bosschaart had said and invited him to come down the tunnel and take it outside. And it's still going on. Quite incredible scenes at Suncorp.
Well, after scored the winner, they went back to halfway. Berisha ran up to Franjic, and it's still going. But he was jesting to Bosschaart about something, and Bosschaart said something. And then all of a sudden, Berisha had his shirt off and he was away with everyone following him.
Well, Bosschaart was quite happy to follow Berisha down the tunnel, and that's why everybody else got involved. Well, that one's going to run for some time. Dave Mason, the media guy for Sydney FC, is trying to calm the Dutchman down. So too Gary Cole. What a night we've had here at Suncorp with such late drama. Well, here it is again. Pascal Berisha, in celebrating the goal, takes his shirt off, goes over to Bosschaart and says, come on.
Let's go outside.
Let's sort this out outside.
Dear, who would you back in that? Not that we should be putting any fun into it, because it's not what you want to see. And only, well, Pardaloo sort of gave us a glimpse of, something's happened in the past, obviously at Cogra when they won that game, but Bosschaart, and they haven't forgotten it. Berisha with the late winner.
Do you kind of regret looking back on it now, the fact that when you search your name, I think that's one of the first things that comes up is that Pascal Bosschaart, Bessart Berisha. Do you think that's kind of tainted your reputation in Australia a little bit?
I don't know if it's a reputation. It's a moment that happens in a career, and it probably was not my only moment in my career. Something like that happened, but I've enjoyed my time. I think I gave myself 100% for the club. I ended up with an Achilles injury, an operation. So that was disappointed. But I certainly look back at my time in Sydney, and I think I did well.
Unfortunately, as you just mentioned, you did have a rather serious injury. And, being a player, getting towards the end of your career, across the other side of the world, as you mentioned, it's pretty much 24 hours or something, travel or something crazy like that. And you're out with a long-term injury. How hard was that mentally for you to deal with?
Well, I think I'm mentally very well, very good. But of course, it's hard because, I had an operation, I had a 9 months recovery. I had my wife, my kids around me, but I also have, parents, brothers. My wife has also parents. So, they were in Holland. So that's kind of hard. And for me, I was luckily that I had Dr. Craig Duncan around me. He was head of the physics, and he was actually training every day one-on-one with me. So I was very happy that I have Dr. Craig around me.
Now, after leaving Sydney FC, you went back to Holland with a club. I would love to know how to pronounce, but I don't think I'm able to do it. When you were playing there and you realized that your professional career was ending and it was winding down and you had to make that decision to retire, how difficult was that for you to accept?
it wasn't too difficult because I can look back on a nice career. I played at a few great clubs. I won some cup finals. So when I came back in Holland, the coach I knew from Utrecht was Fouke Boy, and he was coaching Go Ahead Eagles. So I've tried to train with the group and get 100% fit as well. And they wanted to have me also in their squad, but they had like financial problems. So that's why I actually made my move and I stopped playing football professionally. I played 18 years professional football. So, that moment, there is going to be a moment when you stop playing football. So, and that moment for me was the moment I had to make a decision and stop playing football and doing something else. Got to do something else. When I joined VV IJsselmeervogels, I tried to pick up my fitness again. Still professional at Go Ahead Eagles. But as I said, they had financial problems, so that's why I stopped playing professional football and I went on to a stately club, VV IJsselmeervogels. Now you can try to pronounce VV IJsselmeervogels.
IJsselmeervogels. Is that close?
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Thank you.
That's actually pretty good.
Thank you. So when you were at IJsselmeervogels and you started stepping into the management role, did you find it was easier to be a player first? Did you find that helped the transition at all?
I think it is, yeah, because especially in stately clubs, it's because when you were a professional football player yourself, the way within football, and it's easier to expand your experiences to younger players. So I think the transition to being a coach, I think it was helpful that I played football in a professional way as well.
Was that always your long-term plan as you saw your career was starting to wind down? Was it always the plan to go into management and coaching, or did you have other ambitions?
No, I had other ambitions. Well, I didn't have other ambitions, but when I stopped playing football, I was done with the life of football, so I wanted to do something else. So I went to the police academy. I became pretty far with the police academy. And at that moment, I got a phone call from a manager if I could join him as an assistant manager. So that's why I actually still be in the football instead of being a police officer.
And now that you've had a bit of time to, adjust to the role, what are some things that you didn't realize as a player that you're now realizing as a manager that really goes into, managing a football club?
I do have more respect now for managers than I had back in the days, because it's not only managing a team or a game, it's managing the whole. It's the whole team. You have to manage the whole team. You have to try and keep the whole team together. But it's not only the team; it's also the people who are working around that team. So it's a tough job, I think. That's one of the things I'm still learning, of course. But I didn't know it was that hard.
2022 just started. We're into February now. So for the rest of 2022 and beyond, what are you hoping to achieve? What can we expect to see from Pascal Bosschaart?
Well, of course, I would achieve to be a head coach, coaching and a real great big club. I'm now assistant coach at Cambuur. We are doing well. We just got promoted last year. Now we are on the 9th place as a small club. We got 30 points. So we are doing well. But of course, I have also ambitions, and my ambitions are coaching a real big club, of course. And if those ambitions are 100% legitimate, I don't know, but I'm going to do my best to achieve that one.
It seems like you really enjoyed your time in Australia, but now that you're not a player and you're a coach slash manager, would you see Australia as a potential option for a move in the future, or are you sticking strictly to Europe?
100%. I said it last week as well. If I have an offer, if I got an offer from Sydney or Australia, I would consider that 100%.
And finally, looking back on your amazing 18-year career, as you said, do you have any particular moment that sticks out to you as a favorite? I know it might be hard to pick just one, but is there any particular moment?
Well, I think I would say my first goal in competition for Sydney FC. When we played at, that was after my first 9 months injury. I make my debut back again on the pitch at the Sydney-Melbourne victory game, and I scored my first goal. So that's probably one of the nicest moments.
Well, that was a nice way to end this interview, Pascal. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been
You're
an
welcome.
absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. This video is sponsored by Arrow Sport. Go to the link in the description and the friendly team at Arrow Sport will help you create your own football dream jersey. Whether it's starting from scratch or using one of their many templates on their website, creating a jersey with Arrow Sports is easy and prices start from just $50. Go to www.arrowsport.com.au and make your football kit dreams become a reality.